Hey, what's up, everybody? We're back again with Build Beauties. I have a returning guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, this is Brandon Biggers. I'm currently banned from Facebook, but not from your hearts. So,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Good old Facebook algorithms banning Brandon from Retro. But anyway, he's got this really cool deck. I know you ran it, I think, on one of the Octagon locals. And I know you're running around Octagon a little bit. I haven't played against this personally, but I think I spectated you playing it once or twice. But Commanding Cell. This is a really cool idea. I think it's a really neat list. Just looking over it real quick, Brandon, why Commanding Cell?
so Kelly Dennis and I were just talking. I mean, he was on a huge commanding kick, and I've always loved Cell, and I've always wanted to make use of his traits a little bit better. But it seems like most of the trait cards are like if you have one or fewer, and so they put limits on what he can do. So he was talking about commanding, and so I just started looking at the card pool, and we kind of sort of collaboratively came up with the idea for what if we did commanding cell, and so we started looking at cards like Namekian Onslaught. We saw that he
Red
got
Onslaught.
Red Desire, Red Hustle, and so we were like, okay, like yeah, I said Namekian Onslaught. Yeah, it's Red
I
Onslaught.
I default to it. Yeah, I totally understand. By the way, if anyone's
Yeah.
got one for sale, the world promo, I need it. But
Good luck, man.
uh,
Um, but no, so he kind of fell off the project, and I just sort of put it together and started testing it. It's just kind of a fun deck idea, and it actually sort of blew the doors off of a lot of people. So it's actually a lot more effective than I expected, and it's just been a blast to play. So I did run it in the locals. I steamrolled a couple of players. They were pretty salty, but then I met my nemesis Mark Bulger in the third round, and he sacked me as he always does. So it was just one of those games where he literally had like three energy blocks every time I entered combat, and I would draw like my very scant board cards on defense, and so it just kind of it's just one of those days. But otherwise, the deck has performed really, really well. It surprised some people, I think.
oh, pretty cool. Well, let's run into the board cards first, real quick. Like you said, scants on the board cards. You're running the red hustles at 2, and you're running the visage. I mean, why? I mean, you're taking
Mhm.
advantage of being a villain for sure. Uh, and then of course 3 relaxation. So why only 2 red hustle?
So Red Hustle is sort of a double-edged sword. And so I love the card, but I think at three, you're banishing six cards from your deck if you see all three of them. I think two is a good number because it usually ensures that you see one a game. And really, it just sort of gives you that extra oomph when you need it in a combat. It does have some really cool synergy with Red Reverse, which is kind of neat. I've gotten that combo off a couple of times. Um, but overall, like it's just one of those cards that I couldn't find a slot for as a three of, and it kind of does the work I need it to.
Yeah, no, understandable, understandable.
I know another kind of questionable decision is just running the one cell junior. I think most people run both. But I really just kind of needed him to enable my level one anger gain, and and he actually becomes like a pretty solid stage sync to against physical beats. And since he shuffles in, there's a solid chance I'm going to see him more than once in a game. And in an energy beats matchup, -1 life does add up over time. So I feel like he's a solid include. I don't need to see him every game. I just need him on one, that first search and the two anger gain, and then I'm usually kind of off to the races.
No, for sure.
Um, and then you've got three red relax because only idiots don't run three red relax. I feel like that's pretty standard in pretty much every red deck.
Yeah,
And then Visage is just like, I mean, I feel like it's a nice deterrent in the stage beats matchups sometimes. It's a card that I absolutely love. It's definitely like a huge power card in the game, and so I think it's important. Like it's one of my first includes in villain decks. Um, Sometimes it gets cut, sometimes it stays, and this time it has stayed so far.
No, for sure. No, good. It's. I mean, I love that card. It's one of my favorite cards, probably. Uh,
Me
so
too.
I've always liked villains more. I always loved Visage, and I always loved Stare. I love the villain sphere more than the hero sphere.
Yeah, the art is definitely better, I think, on the villain spheres, both of them.
Yeah.
Um, and Visage is just like, I mean, Frieza is ready and score was like it was ridiculous
Oh,
sometimes. And
oh yeah.
so, Visage is, it's the same thing. So,
Well, with stage, I mean, it's with stage beat stacks easily dropping. A lot of them could drop, 8, 9, 10 stage attacks. You taking them
yep.
direct. I mean, it's pretty easy. Even the good energy beat stacks. Uh, the 8 life cards is not that hard to hit. So I mean, flipping 16 at least on somebody's pretty good
Yeah, absolutely. And it just kind of keeps you even in those combats that you're losing if you see the card. And that's, one of the reasons that I think it's valuable.
for sure. Let's move on to the events. You're only running 2 Unleashed. You're running 2 of every event other than Desire here. So I'm curious.
Yeah, yeah. I want gas in most of my combats. So a high event count is really tough. I was at three stare down and I ended up cutting one for I ended up cutting an unleashed and a stare down for uh red lightning cutter. Because I was running into some issues with removal. I mean, red has terrible setup removal. So I
Yeah,
felt like yeah, it's bad.
yeah, lightning. I mean, lightning cutter's great, but it's not great. Its effect's great.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
I like that
it's one of
it's.
those.
Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
I, I think it's one of those cards that you need, in commanding because there's a lot of really harmful setups, and especially, going into the next meta when you've got Black Meditative, I think it'll be a solid card to have in your arsenal.
No.
But with the ability of commanding to kind of reuse your board, like I just felt like it was a solid include, and it actually has saved me a couple of times in physical beats matchups because I'll get knocked to zero, and it's a free energy that raises me.
Yeah, for sure.
You can secure a level without spending stages, and that is definitely useful in some situations. Not always, but you know.
Yeah.
I found that stare down was like, I was using it. I don't like I kept pitching stare downs when I was passing because it was like I just had better cards from time to time, like a double energy attack, and so I felt like two was the right number. Spear, I always run it two. It's just kind of a personal decision. Josh Gregory is busting my balls about it all the time. The Spear King. He's like, why are you running three spears? Good players run three spears.
Yeah.
But I kept it at two. Ended up cutting it unleashed because I saw it way too often when I was already at four. And with a lot of the anger and the auto levels that I have in this deck and running perfection three, that's an auto level in and of itself. I felt like two was the right number
That's
just to
fair.
kind of make sure I hit three. Because once I hit three, I'm pretty good for the rest of the game. So I just
Yeah,
need to hit three and then I feel really good. So two unleashed felt like the right number.
that makes
And then
sense.
desires is fucking busted. it's it's a ridiculous card. And then,
Yeah.
also with aliens even more so. And so Cell having the alien trait just makes you feel good about your life.
Yeah, Red Desire is amazing. I love this card. I've been playing Commanding Frieza lately, and I love this card. Great, great card.
Desire is wonderful. I like, oh, so good.
I'm glad it's limit one. It's incredibly powerful. Like this is very much a limit one power card. It's a very, very good card.
100%. And I mean, it's another great search target with Cell 4. So Cell 4 can tutor it when
Oh, that's
entering
true.
combat. And
That's true.
it just basically, it gives you, I mean, Cell 4 could tutor the card that you're going to get with Desire, but it now gets you Desire and whatever card you would have got with Cell Level 4 and a card that you draw off of
Yeah,
the card of a Desire. So
yeah.
it gives you a lot. It
Especially
gives
if
you a lot of value.
you want to pitch a card out of your hand or something.
Yep. Yep.
So
Absolutely. And that's kind of a theme. Like there's a lot of cards that give me extra value in this deck. Relax, hustle, desire. They all enable my mastery by giving me an extra card in hand. So
Yeah,
it becomes pretty strong.
for sure. Yeah, no, Self 4 is great. I actually even I've wanted to try to make decks using the old Perfection too because I used to really like that level because it gave you any card that you wanted that was styled, but it just feels
Sure.
like it's too slow and it's not advantageous enough by being an out of
Yeah,
combat. Like if you, it's only good if you're entering. It feels like,
absolutely.
uh,
Yeah, because I mean, you
but
held a card on defense, that you wanted to keep,
mm,
presumably.
yeah,
And so if you get entered on, it's like, well, I lose this card, but I get a different card. I don't know.
for sure.
The reason that I ended up keeping, because that was a consideration that I had, but cell one and two searching my ally when entering and save the game against the physical beats deck. So that's part of the rationale there too.
Yeah, it
Just kind
is.
of using my ally to soak some stages and then shuffle him back in, and
Cell
that's kind of
doesn't
how
really
it's.
have that great of AT either. That's the thing. He's in B and C
Mm-mm.
primarily. You know, he's got kind of
Yep.
got that awakening syndrome, where they were kind of still balanced around people being in B and C, and now it's like all the new
Hmm.
MPs are like consistently like C, D, E, F on level one for majority of their
Yeah.
stages. So it's definitely punishing. So I think that yeah, being able to grab the ally in one and two is really good.
Just going through the entire fucking alphabet, man. Like,
For sure.
it's
So we'll move on to the interesting stuff. The energy attacks make up probably the majority of the deck here, if you're looking at it. A lot of, surprisingly, in my opinion, surprisingly more three ofs than I thought there would be. There's actually only a couple, what, three two ofs I'm seeing as far as energy attacks go. I was actually expecting a couple more two ofs. So if you want to start running through the energy attacks,
sure. Three static is pretty much an auto include. I don't even think that needs an explanation. Cards. It enables like big time scary combats. Energy Blast is there, the three of, because block drills kind of ruined my day. And so I have to have that removal. Clearing Blast started as a two of actually and has just become this insane power card.
yeah,
The anger gain, the banishments, setting it up towards the bottom card of your discard pile, man, it does so much in commanding. And so it's a card I love. Immediately bumped up to three after busting people in the face with it a few times. Combined blast, couples with spear, and tandem blast to really lock my opponent out of options. Combined blast having three endurance was also a huge factor in it being a three of, because red energy really, really suffers in that department. And so I wanted to make sure that my endurance count was high. One of the drawbacks is Cell can't run Android twin beams. So that is obviously frustrating, but I have never really had a combined blast not go off if I needed the effect.
yeah,
Um, I usually have kind of a lot of anger here. So Red Onslaught's a three of because it's a double attack, and those add up really, really quickly. And the rejuvenation on hits uh, pretty much enables um, half of my strategy, So I can make sure that I hit the bottom card that I want. I can make sure that that I'm putting power cards back in. I can rejuvenate a card and then play a red left bolt, which happens on occasion. But it just kind of goes with the theme of making sure that I out action my opponent with double attacks and extra card draws.
that's true.
Um, that's kind of the rationale there. And then Guilty Flash is the same way. You've got an energy for five, raise your anger one that you can play twice. So it's very powerful. You end up pushing a ton of damage very, very quickly. The only games where you don't is where Cell Junior gets like immediately removed while you're on one, and that becomes problematic. But there's enough anger to really push you, and Tandem Blast is actually a huge part of the Dex engine. Um, it enables you to level hop between four and three after you've used your four power. So the level hopping component refreshes your stages and really, really helps your physical beats matchup for that reason as well.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I was gonna say usually a lot of times when I build these commanding decks, I have a hard time running three combined blast and three tandem, um, because it's like either I'm suffering on the anger, or and that's even when I'm running Android twin beams. It feels like I just can't consistently keep my anger, or it's like combined blast being a three-stage cost is pretty hefty.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. It is.
but
I end up rejuvenating it a lot
yeah,
because I want to not die, and that's kind of a big consideration in red energy, I think.
that's fair. Well, Red
So,
Energy's got a lot of sneaky endurance, though. I mean, okay, I'm saying a lot, but then I'm looking at your list, and I'm like, okay, actually, I'm only counting like three energies with endurance, but
and that's the thing. I
um,
feel like you can run like the pure value cards. You can run cards with endurance. There are very few cards like Clearing Blast that provide both.
nah, that's true.
Um, Static Shot's no endurance. Left Bolt's no endurance. Energy Blast is no endurance. Tandem Blast is no endurance. Onslaught's no endurance. I mean, there's so few cards that offer that total package. And so with Combined Blast, I leaned a little bit more heavily on the endurance. It has saved my bacon a few times with being able to lower my anger three and lock someone out of confrontation or, time.
Unleashed.
Um, Unleashed, Omnis, like it does a lot of work. Like, it honestly hits a lot of the same things that Tandem Blast hits. And there are like very, very few times that Tandem Blast is a bad card. So
Yeah, now Tandem Blast makes a lot of sense with Cell, especially because you can only drop once a game with his level four, and his three is so fucking good. You
yeah,
know,
it is
so
one of the best threes in the game.
probably one of my
Just
favorite threes in the game personally. I love this level.
absolutely. I get
Yeah,
to banish your discard pile and level up, and then I get to tutor a card, and then I can go down and use I mean, like it's the same old strategy that we're going to see with Beerus, that we already see, with my Ramp Draku deck, actually, where it's
yeah,
just kind of like like we did with Future Gohan and Empowered,
mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
all those years ago.
all those. It's crazy. It's been what two years now since 2
Yeah,
years or so. Actually, more than 2 years now, but
I think it's three. I think
yeah,
it's been three
it's
years.
three. Yeah, it's crazy. Fantasy's been going on for what 5 years now, getting on to be 5 years, or not 5 years yet, but almost 5 years because we
Almost
started
five.
December, I think, like right after the game was canceled in like November, December. We announced Fantasy
Yeah.
continuing, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah,
Yeah.
no,
It's been a lot. It's been a while.
but yeah, then the leveling hopping. Not to mention, I mean, you do get a crit with the mastery when you drop the level too with the tandem
Absolutely.
blast. So that's pretty neat. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I definitely see tandem blast deserving a three of in this deck for sure. So
It is. I think it's a three of in most red decks, honestly. Like the only ones that don't want it are like
yeah,
hardcore stage beats.
yeah, that or MPPV, I suppose. But
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you don't
um,
want to run an MPPB, but
yeah,
still useful.
yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's really any other red energy. I think really, I mean, if you're gonna run it red energy beats, this is kind of what you're gonna be running. This is like the best.
Yeah.
I mean, the red energies that are good are these ones. At this point,
And I
it's just a
think that
matter of the numbers you can run of each.
Yeah, and I think that people, I've seen people run one red lightning cutter. I've
Ooh,
seen, you
ooh.
know, I know, and I've seen people, run two combined blasts. I don't know. Like I know Joey says endurance doesn't matter, but I feel like it really does. So
Yeah,
just go ahead and disagree with that assessment and run by nine endurance, by six life energy that can block you in defense. Thank you very much.
yeah. Well, we'll move on to the physical beats, physical attacks. You only have five physical attacks, of course. They all make sense. As
Yeah,
a
I
deck that's
mean,
trying to level.
yeah, absolutely. Draining attack is self-explanatory. Like I'm just gonna get up there and try. I mean, I'm trying to get to level three, so both attacks make sense. Gambit at three is pretty much a must, I think, in most decks that don't want to MPPV,
Yeah,
energy or physical, and it's just like it just enables the engine. It's another thing that I can throw for free that can level me. That I mean, gets me out of bad situations and I probably wouldn't run Combined Blast at three if I didn't have three Gambit, but the fact that I can gain three anger I mean, pretty regularly with like a lot of my sweet gear, there's a lot of two anger plays in my deck. Um, so I mean, I think that I'm pretty much always live with most of my lowering effects, and Gambit's a big part of that.
No,
I
that's
mean,
fair.
I, I've never been sad to see Red Gambit in my hands, despite what some say.
Gambit is definitely good fuel for most of the anger as a resource effects, which is what this card giving only three. I say only three anger. Giving three anger is actually really powerful because a lot of times those anger as a resource decks, they have to play around. I don't want to gain too much anger because I want to level on accident. But Gambit giving three, I mean, I think three is pretty manageable for the most part for
It is.
most of those kind of things. So
Yeah, it's a
um,
great card.
yeah,
Plus,
one
it also enables that crit really easily.
yeah. I will say this, what about I'll dig your grave? Have you ever considered I'll dig your grave
I
splashing in here?
did. I did consider dig. It's just really, really hard to fit.
Yeah,
Like it's like a really, really tight fit, and I feel like I would end up cutting a lot of my power cards.
yeah,
Well, not a lot, but I mean, I feel like I would lose more steam than gain it with dig. It's just kind of contrary to my game plan a little bit, and I've never really needed it, honestly. Like I've never seen a game where I have not like if I win, I steamroll.
yeah.
You
That's
know what I
fair.
mean? And so it's never been a necessary card.
That's fair.
But it was a consideration early on.
I was gonna say somebody just made a post recently talking about was it Patrick Broadway made a post and he was trying to say that how like unpreventable damage is degenerate or something, but it's like at the same point a bunch of people are saying look at the defensive decks. It's like if you don't have unpreventable damage, you can't beat them. Which I mean,
Absolutely.
you have stag shut for it, and I guess you have like light mill on three. You do have level three as well, so I
Hmm.
mean, I guess you have the answers to that in essence. But being able
I
to
mean,
dig your grave up to like even level three or something, or even to
yeah,
four, when you just pop them back down, especially as an energy beats deck, being able to get some stages back, having life card beats on your three, I thought it would be a consideration. But again, I mean, maybe a lot of time you'd rather have just the style energy attacks. They synergize way better with the deck most of the
they
time.
do. They do. And it just becomes kind of like picking your poison. Like what do you want to do? And
Yeah,
I went with I'm gonna sling a bunch of double attacks at you and draw cards, and we'll see how that goes.
no, that's fair.
So I think certainly with Krillin coming out and him preventing a lot, like Dig is probably going to be a pretty important card in most beats decks. And so I might shift that a little bit as the meta kind of changes. But
I just think
for now, I mean, go ahead.
I was gonna say uh, as long as beats kind of dominate when people are mostly playing, then like dig kind of loses a little bit of value because not that it's not good still. It's just it's kind of like well if I don't have to worry about have to turn off endurance.
Right.
Depending on the style that's prevalent, beats cards aren't always the most endurance heavy. If you're red, for example, even orange to
Yeah.
some extent, orange, but they do have a lot of endurance on random cards. But
I mean, I feel like Orange Beats has tremendous amounts of endurance, like way more than it should.
a lot
But
of
red has always been light in the endurance department for sure.
yeah. Well, we'll move on to the block count now. You have quite a few blocks. I mean, what seven or sorry, nine physical blocks, seven energy, and a time is a warrior's tool. Uh,
Yes.
you mentioned this while you were setting up the deck here, but red has so many blocks that it's hard to choose from. They're all so good for the most part, especially like even the red energy blocks. A lot of them are just gain anger, lower anger, but like even then they have a ton of endurance. But then you have like red
Yeah.
hop at your disposal, or sorry, not red hop, red escape at your disposal, uh, to have to kind of jockey with. And then you have things like
Yeah.
red clap and red energy deflection for commanding mastery.
Yeah, and that was like, man, that was the part that I agonized over with building this deck. And that's honestly most of my testing ended up playing with the block counts. Especially for energy blocks. Like red has so many ridiculously good energy blocks. Like it's just, especially in commanding, like you mentioned, energy deflection, clap. I mean, it's ridiculous. And so I had to make some executive decisions with my blocks. I knew that I wanted red reverse because I'm running Unleashed and I'm running Hustle. So and it just again kind of puts me over the top, makes me win faster. Great card. I need it.
Yeah.
And it has endurance, which is definitely a plus. Red blocking hand went in over some of the commanding blocks because the two anchor is just really valuable with my strategy. It's kind of your go-to red block. So
But gain two
I don't know.
stages. I mean,
Yeah, the two stages is a huge part of it too. I mean, that's your energy attack that you needed to throw toward the end of combat, you know. Um, it just sort of, it can save you. And then evasive maneuver, I really like reusing my key cards to get banished. Because early targets, against things that are trying to pick cards out of my deck, I'm gonna lose my static shots. I'm
mhm.
gonna lose my guilty flashes. Against decks with heavy freestyle counts, I'm gonna lose my tandem blasts. And so evasive maneuver lets me reuse some of those cards, get them back in my deck. It's kind of the same rationale as Defiant Challenge, only for styled attacks. Lets me use a fourth gambit if I need it in a game. It just does a lot. It just synergizes so well. Um, yeah, and I know I needed a huge amount of physical blocks. So that
Yeah,
was just, and I wanted hard physical blocks. It just, it was just important.
that's fair.
And then my energy blocks were really rough, really, really hard. Um, I knew I needed the three sacrifice for the anger. That's pretty much the consideration there. It's also the unpreventable damage.
Yeah, I think
So throwing,
people always forget that second part of the parenthetical. It makes your next attack unpreventable.
yeah, yeah, and so that's a way to kind of get around, the dig need as well. I love the five anger play with Gambit. Um, that comes out of nowhere and happens a lot more than you would think.
A blocking hand as well with
So
Gambit's pretty silly. You take like
it
an
is.
attack, throw the second attack, you level.
Yep, yep, it works really, really well. I've desired into Red Gambit, discarded a sacrifice to level to three before. I mean, like, there's just a lot you can do. Um, Red Brace, a recurable block that gains me anger and has endurance, just ended up being too good. It also has some synergy with Hustle. So if you need two stages for whatever reason and you
Yeah.
have a Hustle in play, you can banish and get off another energy attack.
On that note,
Um,
enhance beam. I just remembered red enhance beam's not in this deck.
it's not.
Just doesn't
Yeah,
it's just kind of cool. That's really all I have to say that card is. It's cool. That's it. Oh,
it
banish damage
is.
is
No,
cool, but banish damage alone, if red got some more stuff that worked somehow with banishing damage that did some sort of synergy, maybe like all those red banish cards would be fun, but
yeah.
it's just kind of
Well, and
cute at this
and
point.
that's the thing is, I mean, banish damage is always good. It will never not be good.
Yeah, it's
Um,
just over utility effects though.
yeah, and I mean, I feel like I've got my banishment covered between clearing blast and cell three, and so that became because otherwise it's just a vanilla six life energy that raises your anger,
Yeah.
and I just couldn't think of, honestly, it is usually one of my auto includes in red energy. I just like everything else does so much more for the strategy, so
Yeah.
it was just kind of like, no. Um,
Red flea.
so yeah, Red Flea, three endurance. It helps with stage costs. That's pretty much the main reason it's included. Raising anger, lowering anger. Like this block is extremely good, and
What about red
very
clap over
underrated.
this though? Because red clap, if you play it, gives you 5 stages.
I know, but this one, like, I
And
don't
it's
know,
and it's
like,
got the
it's a
parenthetical effect.
hard, yeah, I know, it's a hard include. Part of it was Red Clap have three endurance?
2 endurance.
Okay, okay,
But then if you discard,
then
you get to rearrange your pile.
that's true. I'm kind of an endurance fiend.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think that's like always a consideration when I go in is I'm just like, okay, like I need to make sure that I don't die immediately. So I mean I think red clap could be a possibility over red flea depending on your inclinations. I don't need the discard pile rearrangement as much because of, all the other things I run that do it.
Yeah, like
With
invasive, desire,
Yeah.
Onslaught.
Evasive Desire, Onslaught, I mean, are basically the big three
Yeah,
uh, that do pretty much the same thing. Um, so, like I said, I mean, I think that you could run Red Clap and probably be fine.
yeah,
Um, and it wouldn't really be that big of a deal. But I love the endurance and the effects on brace and flee, and so that's why I went with them. Energy deflection was a really, really hard cut. Um, and the only reason I didn't include it was because of endurance. Like I
yeah,
already knew my endurance count was low and I was getting down and I knew that I wanted to run certain cards to make this deck go. Like if I wasn't running Onslaught, I could probably run an energy that was more endurance,
yeah,
but I am running Onslaught and that's the whole point of my deck. Honestly, that was the whole concept. So I ended up leaning toward cutting energy deflection, which I know there
which
are
I
a
think
lot of
is for
people.
this deck. I think it's fine. I think unless you're playing really around like healing drill and the drill package with the master discard, I
Yeah,
think like deflection. It's a cool card. It's good. It's not a bad card. It's a great card for the parenthetical. But if you're not already running like that rejuve heavy theme, that heal heavy theme, I don't think it's you're not missing out a ton. But
yeah,
it
and
works.
I mean,
You know,
I'm gonna have Kelly Dennis watch this, and he's gonna call me like terrible at the game or whatever for not
that's
having
fair.
that energy deflection. But like I can't run the drill package in commanding, which I mean, uh, Kelly likes to run every deck like it's a black control deck, and that's what he does with every commanding build. So um, I don't know. Like I think this is a lot more aggressive than some other commanding builds out there. I level
Yeah,
too much to have the drills, so that's just kind of what it boils down to.
yeah.
Um,
This deck almost plays like ruthless, where it's trying to use the power for the attack. It's not trying to play all the cutesy effects. It's just trying to beat. You know.
yeah, yeah, it's Cell. Like Cell shows up and he just kind of wants to beat the shit out of everyone. That's like his whole goal. So
Yeah,
it works out. It's thematic. That's
that's
how
fair.
we're gonna say. And then you've got time. I didn't include like my go-to omnis are usually on the move and whatever styled omni. And since I'm not running drills, red stop is useless.
Yeah,
And he can't run. I mean, on the move is okay. Like it's a consideration because of the stage gain, but I ended up liking the styled block suite with just hard blocks a bit better. Um, if I were going to cut something to add a couple more omnis or something, it would probably be Visage. And I'd kind of lean toward liking Visage.
that's fair.
Um,
As
yeah,
far as an
but
impactful one of, if you see it, it's really good.
it is. It
So
is. But yeah, and like, I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, I just, I like Visage. I don't know. Sue me.
yeah. So with the deck list kind of broken down and everything, what would you say are like the good matchups for the deck and maybe some of the bad matchups for the deck?
I think it really handles slower decks really, really well. For an energy beats deck, it just kind of comes in and just kind of eats face. This deck will chain really, really quickly. So you are going to go 1 to 2 to 3 really, really fast. And once you hit 3, you've got an unpreventable 7 life card attack every combat pretty much. Because 4 can tutor a tandem blast, and you can just tutor tandem blast every combat and just go down. So
Yeah.
it gives a lot of versatility and a lot of matchups that maybe is not present right there on the surface. It can handle physical beats. You just have to really play intelligently, I'll say.
Okay.
I ended up losing to MPPV, which,
Makes
that's
sense.
obviously, yeah, that's a difficult consideration for most red decks. Cell kind of can tamp it down a little bit, but those speed MPPV decks are still just going to run right by, unfortunately. And so that's a difficult matchup. Have to really save your anger hate really, really well. Um, Physical beats is not always a bad matchup. it honestly just comes down to draws. I think it handles other energy beats pretty well.
I feel like
It's
it can get on board pretty quick in terms of just
yeah,
dropping out damage and leveling.
yeah. And so as opposed to like orange, this deck will enter a lot more than an orange deck. Like you can enter turn one with this deck. Because you get the extra three stages from the Cell Junior. And so if you just play really well, you can refresh your stages by getting the two. It's pretty common. Onslaught gains two anger, Guilty Flash can gain two anger, Static Shots two anger, Gambit's three anger. So there are a lot of different combinations in your hand that can push you up through those levels. And you mentioned earlier the sneaky blocking hand gambit combo. Like you can soak a lot of stages from a physical beat stack, and then drop a blocking hand toward the end of combat, play gambit, level up, and then you're back in business. So,
Yeah,
um, like I feel like this is a deck that really rewards intelligent plays and sneaky plays, and it can be a lot less straightforward than it appears. So,
for sure.
I haven't seen like anything that's just a horrible matchup except for speed MPGB.
Yeah, I was gonna say no red expunge. I have a hard time ever putting that card in a deck. It feels like it's just super bleh most of the time.
It's another utility red energy with no endurance.
Yeah,
So it's like, how many of those do I have to run? Come on,
exact,
devs, give us
exact.
something with endurance.
Well, you got clearing blast, so I guess you got to be happy with that one.
That's your one card for 3 years. That's what you get.
Yeah. No, it seems like a pretty cool deck. It seems like there's a lot of really cool engines that revolve around using Gambit, and usually supplemented with somebody's named card. Anybody with like an auto leveler seems to really benefit from Gambit, even
Absolutely.
in terms of just expediting the game plan. But uh, yeah, being able to like abuse a deck that can abuse Tandem that's not Goku is pretty cool. I mean, Cell again is like very much mirrors Goku for evolution in a way, and where you're getting kind of anything you want for the most part just after the Banish Zone. But
Sure.
you also get that kind of up on Goku in a sense that you get to not spend an action getting the card.
Hmm.
And then of course, like you said, the level hopping stuff with 4 to 3 is really good. Um,
It is. And I've actually had games where the best play was to play cell four, lower them a level, drop to cell three, use my cell three power, play tandem blast
to
to
go down
drop to
again.
cell two.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
good.
then
I mean,
yeah, and
10
then you're
unpreventable
on cell
damage of
two
combat
and
there.
mill. Yep.
So
Yep. And then you level back up to three at the end of combat and you feel good about your life choices.
yeah,
So it's it works. There's just a lot of plays that are kind of unlocked as you become a little bit more familiar with the deck. And you're just kind of like, oh, wait, that's a cool thing that I didn't know that I could do right away. So let's do that. Like, I love the I love the hustle and reverse interaction. It's like my favorite thing right now in the deck. So um, it's just fun. And so yeah, I mean it's a really fun deck. I really recommend anybody who is looking for something kind of new and quirky to give it a try. I love Cell as a character, and so I have wanted to play him for forever in something that wasn't Namekian. Um, and so I was like, hey, nobody's on this one. He's got some trait cards here, so let's give it a whirl. And it's been a lot of fun.
yeah. I would love to see more traded stuff come out. Just going forward, I just want to keep seeing more traded card support, and I'd love to see just to really push some of these MPs a little bit farther. Cell is one of those MPs I think is really. A lot of people think he's good, but he doesn't get played a ton. But like he's just got some really sneaky, powerful stuff going on with his stacks. Um,
Yeah, no,
so,
definitely.
but
And I think people I don't know. I think people forget his Perfection 3, if that makes sense. Like, I think they see his Awakening 1 and 2, and they will always want to play Awakening 3. Like, most decks, it seems like, are on the Awakening 3. But I
uh,
mean,
I, it sucks that his like Perfection 1 and 2 are just unplayable at this point. His Perfection 1's unplayable. His Perfection 2 is damn near unplayable unless you're playing like a
yeah,
leaping kick deck. I mean, I
it's really
guess
close.
there's some cool. You could argue, oh, I get to go tutor Gambit, but like, I don't
But
know.
I mean, that just like
Nope.
And that was a consideration. That was the thing I thought about. It was just, would I rather do that or would I rather have something that if I get stuck on in a game, like
Mm,
it's actually going to benefit me?
yeah. Well, not to
Because
mention.
tutoring the junior from any zone is really, really useful
Yeah.
if you end up on two for any length of time.
I mean, again, mitigating stage damage by
Yep.
redirecting at worst.
Name of the game. Name of the game.
So, so I mean, and his AT's okay enough on two. It's not great, but it's okay enough where you
Yeah,
might
I
be able
mean
to take
it's
like two hits on Cell Junior potentially.
yeah. Yeah. And if he gets crit, I don't care because he's coming back next combat anyway, you know?
Exactly. No.
Little guy just never dies.
Yeah. Well, really cool deck. Brandon, thank you for coming on and showing me this. I know we were talking about this for a bit. I might actually make this deck here and go goof around with it a bit before the Dragon Ball Super set comes out. Of course, right now, the time of recording, Dragon Ball Super, I think, is probably going to come out in a month or two. We're still in the middle of preview season. We only had the Masteries and the MP so far. And I know the Hurricane, what is it? Hurricane Ida is happening right now. So,
Yeah, it's been a really, really long preview season. Which, I understand that it's not Joey's fault necessarily, but like, I think we're all hungry, ready for
yeah,
some new things. Need some style cards, baby. Desperation. That's what we need.
the big one I'm anticipating is the desperation mechanic, specifically with Saiyan Master. I want to see what they do if like every card in the Saiyan, if every card that comes out this set is like a desperation mechanic effect. That'd be really cool to make like practically every one of the new cards tutorable. I think that's what you would need. Um,
Yeah.
that or you're gonna need like one or two desperation effects that are like advance your MP a level, kind of stuff. Because that Master is gonna struggle with leveling pretty hard. Uh,
Yeah, well,
I say
well,
that,
I'm
but people are able to level with enhanced with the right support. So I don't know. Maybe there are some discard effects insane already for what it's worth. But
well, part of it I think matters, what MP you're using. Like Broly levels easily and enhanced. Bardock
yeah,
also levels pretty easily. And Gotenks is like an anger monster. I don't know. It almost seems like they designed a lot of MPs to level with enhanced.
well they've
It's
just been
really
designing
easy.
the piece in general to level for
That's true.
most of fan,
Ever. Yeah.
especially set. I'd say like 10 onward. The most MPs
Yeah,
are
that's
able to
true.
level pretty well. They're built in one or two anger level one and two. So,
That's true.
but
That's true.
well,
I'm waiting on a desperation card in the Mechian. That's what I'm waiting on.
nope,
Because empowered Gohan is going to be insane if there's just a couple of those. So,
could definitely,
anyways,
definitely. Alrighty, well, guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the deck. Be looking forward to some more stuff as kind of time comes in and people, like again, if you always want to submit something, by all means, for build duties, hit me up, shoot me a message. But anyway, thank you, Brandon, once again, and take it easy, guys. Peace.
absolutely. Later, dudes.